Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Hope you had a nice week. Let's see who we have on tonight. We have Jared. Great to see you, Jared. Rebecca, great to have you on. Hope you're well. Colin is here. Great to see you. Nico is here too. Stu. Hi, Max. Hi, Stu. Von Nakanizer. Great to see you. Tiny Demolition Lover. Hope you're well up there in Scotland. We have Enzo the God. Great to see you, Enzo. Hope you're well. Oraman is here. Killer, thanks for moderating. Great to see you. We have Roisin. Great to have you on, Roisin. Alistair, great to see you. I hope you're well up there in Scotland too. Chatty Rat is here too. Hope you're well. Wee Scott's Dog, great to have you on. Hope you're well. We also have Oraman. Young Ralph, great to see you, Young Ralph. Who else have we got? Conservator is here. Hope you're well, Conservator. We also have Nick and Diff, great to see you. We have Asperger's Europe, great to have you on. Hope you're well too. FSM is the dog. Robespierre, Wales has a deal for the NHS. Only England left. Yes, Scotland has a deal. Is working on a deal. Or I think I don't know if the deal fell through or what, but they did negotiate with the nurses directly, and the Welsh government the same. But Westminster doesn't seem to want to do that. Carol is here. Great to see you, Carol. Derek Gardner, great to have you on. Arc Office, great to see you. Ruth is here once again. Hope you're well, Ruth. Who else have we got? Unfortunately, I can't say hello to everyone, but I try. Eddie Wolfie, great to see you. Who else? David McGuinness, hope you're well, David. Check out David McGuinness, Indie Truck Davies channel. I see the Daily Blaze is here too, and so many more. Hope you're all very well. We have a super chat from Chris. Thank you so much, Chris. If Labour win the next election, would you team up with Phil Morehouse and sing a cover of Things Can Only Get Better? Yes, we'll do that for charity. Yes, we I don't know if Phil will agree to it, but I'll agree to do it. Maybe, I'll sing the first verse and then you'll be telling me stop singing. So that should be enough. So I have to practice my voice. If Labour win, which it's a guarantee, okay, so I don't know if this is a promise or a threat for me to sing it, but maybe myself and Phil can team up to do something, okay, certainly something for for when the results come in, or the day after, whichever it is. Definitely do a live stream on the night of the election, definitely, but that's, God knows when that is. It could be 6 months from now. It could be a year and a half from now. Nobody really knows. Thanks for that. Remember, guys, you can, if you want to become a member of the channel, you can do that. If you want to become a patron, you can do that too, and you have access to Discord, or you can send me a super chat and I'll read it out during the stream. If you can't, don't worry, you can still comment. I'll try and read your comments too. Nurses not going on strike. Unite Unison accepted the deal, Max. That's great news. I hope they got as much as they asked for, or of course they won't get as much as they asked for, but as close as possible to what they asked for. But Boris did his best. Yes. So guys, I want to start off with Brexit, of course. We had already covered some of it on the Tuesday night stream, but there's always a bit of Brexit about. So I just want to read this from David Davis. David Davis says civil service was crap at negotiating Brexit, and Whitehall lawyers generally useless. David Davis was Brexit secretary from between 2016 and 2018, and as such, it was often assumed that he was in charge of the Brexit negotiations with the EU. Just to remind you, this is a picture of David Davis back in 2018, 2018, or 2017, 2018, when he began the negotiations with Michel Barnier. And you can notice here how David doesn't need documents or paper or pens or anything. It's all up here, just pointing to his head. It's all up here. He doesn't need, fancy things like pen and paper. uh, and then he folded within a few minutes. I think it was like half an hour. He's like, no, I can't take any more of this, and I'm out. Pathetic. What sort of message does it send? And of course, David Davis was the guy who said, we won't be in Brussels the day after the vote. We'll be in Berlin negotiating. This was in Brussels. Anyway. But of course, when things go south, which is the term, south or sour? Anyway, when things go badly, blame somebody else. That's the Tory mantra. But in an interview with the Institute for Government for its Ministers Reflect series, ex-ministers talking about what they've learned in government. David Davis learned nothing, obviously. Mostly very interesting, but generally very, very long. David stressed the importance of the civil service in the talks and said that they were crap, he said. So there's a number of things to say about this. The UK never was really involved in negotiations. So when it came to negotiating with the EU, they didn't really have a team. Now, there were some senior negotiators who had been part of EU deal negotiations, but the Brexiteers didn't want to send them because they were considered Remainers. So the Brexiteers wanted to send Brexiteers to negotiate on behalf of the UK government. But the Brexiteers they sent were people like David Davis, who didn't know his arse from his elbow. And of course, because he didn't know his arse from his elbow, instead of admitting, I actually didn't know my arse from my elbow, he started blaming the people around him. Whitehall did a really crap job at negotiating. I mean, really crap. I think it's partly because they sympathised with the European view and assumed that it was reciprocated. It wasn't. So was this they were expecting? And look, he was the head of the negotiations. Obviously, he didn't know what the hell he was doing. So he relied on others. And the others were saying, well, this is, we're not in a strong position. And his response, of course we are. They need us more than we need them. Haven't you heard my rhetoric? If you feel that the person on the other side of the table is a nice person and you really understand their point of view, there's a tendency to think that they'll be friendly to you, which is naive on a grand scale. Also it doesn't take into account the psychology. If you've got a negotiation where you've got an antagonist on the other side, and we plainly did with the French at least, there are different ways of negotiating, then there are different styles of negotiation. For example, it's said that Americans are very friendly when they negotiate, but they demand a lot within the negotiations. For example, Russians or some Slavic countries, as well as Russia, within that sort of culture, there is the way of being very friendly outside the negotiations, but being ruthless within them. So this is in a way it's to break down your defenses before the negotiations and then to destroy you within them. There are different styles of negotiation, but obviously David Davis doesn't understand that. If you're negotiating, you use whatever tools you have available to you. And the UK were going up against the best the European Union had. People who were seasoned, people who had been doing negotiations, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And you had David Davis going against. It's like if I were to go and buy, I don't know, a Volkswagen Golf from the CEO or the sales manager of Volkswagen in Germany, and I had to negotiate, who do you think would come out better there? Okay, I'd be the David Davis of the situation. Anyway, since Gina Miller has been in the news, we have a super chat from Reagan Elite. Thank you so much, Reagan Elite. Please support All Shorts if you can. He got a strike on his channel, can't make videos for a while. All Shorts. Yes, I saw that about All Shorts. I don't know exactly what happened. I've been trying to contact him, but he hasn't responded. So I don't know if he's on tonight. Please do contact me, All Shorts. We'd like to have you on the Sunday roast. And I know you can't make videos if you have a strike. I've had strikes before in the past, and it's a real bugger because you can't upload videos for 7 days, I think it is. And the thing about YouTube is you need to be constantly uploading content. So yeah, thanks for that super chat, and please do support All Short's channel. Check out his videos, really, really good content, really, really funny and interesting, and it'd be great to have him back on the Sunday roast. Alistair has become a member, yay! Welcome to Discord access, yay! Great to have you on as a member of the channel. Thanks so much for that support. Just for members, I said it in a video for members that I'm planning to do some special content for members, videos that that don't normally go on to the channel, and maybe access to videos before the rest of the internet gets to see them, something like that. But it's still a work in progress. Goes on to say here, since Gina Miller has been in the news today, it's worth pointing out that Davis also says that in his interview that she was right to take the UK to court to insist MPs vote on the decision to trigger Article 50, commencing the formal process of withdrawal from the EU. That is not something Davis said publicly at the time. He says, I think actually Gina Miller was right. The government was wrong. I mean, why the hell we just didn't take it through the original piece of legislation? I don't know. But Theresa May had come from the Home Office. They were where they resist everything, and I thought, well, we'll go with it. The truth was, Gina Miller had the right of the argument, and thought she would win it. Whitehall lawyers said she wouldn't. Whitehall lawyers are generally useless. Sometimes they just give the advice they think they're expected to give. I think it's a case of people who knew the law were not involved in the process of the negotiations for Brexit. As I said, it's like the people who understood Brexit were the Remainers. They understood better than the Brexiteers. The Brexiteers didn't understand what Brexit was going to entail. They thought, okay, leave means leave. Okay, well, what does that actually mean? And of course, us on the Remain side, we're asking, continually, what does leaving the EU actually mean? And nobody on the other side could actually answer that question. Remember Nigel Farage and his clean break Brexit, no deal Brexit. The red, white and blue Brexit of Theresa May. This sort of rhetoric, if you heard it today, even Brexiteer, even people who supported Brexit would be scratching their head. What the hell does that mean? A red, white and blue Brexit. Complete and utter madness. Anyway, and that was when I saw this picture the very first time, I knew we were off to a bad start. Who goes to a very important meeting, probably one of the most important meetings between the UK and the EU, and you don't bring a piece of paper and a pen? So I don't want to show you all of this clip, but this was really funny. Today, James O'Brien LBC uploaded this video where James O'Brien has a row with a Brexiteer over EU corruption. If you haven't seen it, I just want to show you part of it. It's 18 minutes long, so I promise I'm not going to show all of it to you. But happy St. Bridget's Bank Holiday weekend, well overdue. Thanks so much, Cahill. Thanks so much for that super chat. Or your name on Discord is is the Podge and Raj. Wasn't it Podge and Raj? Podge from that very strange comedy show in Ireland in the 90s. I think it was in the 90s, late 90s. Podge and Raj at Late Night with Podge and Raj. Thanks so much, Cahill, and I hope you had a nice weekend, Podge. So I just want to show you part of this.
scintilla of fact to support anything that you're saying. Can you think of one example of lies, of corruption, of documents? Yeah. Go on.
Right, it might not have been them, but since then, first of all, I'm not a Boris lover, but
right.
Thanks so much, Cole. All Shorts and support for All Shorts. Hey, let's get All Shorts onto the. Let's get some support for All Shorts for sure. Thanks for that, Cole.
Got given the job to get us out of Europe, the EU.
Yeah.
And he done a good job. He done a good number on it, right?
What's your favourite bit?
We should have left.
What's your favourite bit?
What, the fact that we left?
No, about the thing that's better now we've gone.
Well, it's very difficult to put anything. It's no worse.
Well, it is, isn't it?
The only criticism I have of this call is that James should have pushed more on. Tell us what you got. Tell us what you won. Obviously, the guy couldn't answer it, but I would have pushed more on this.
It's not.
We're 100.
What's caused the worseness, if that's a word?
Yeah.
It's not that we've left the EU. It's the fact that there was a pandemic followed straight after by a war.
Yeah,
you can't blame what's going on.
It's not, though, is it? Yes,
it is. This is the point you're missing.
Okay. Well, I mean, where are you getting your information from? Because I'm getting mine from the IMF, the Bank of England.
The IMF.
Yeah, right? And the Bank of England.
They're the people that said we're going to have...
But where are you getting your information from?
They're the people that said that we were going to have go into recession and we're the only one that's not going to make any money.
We've got...
Just before the pandemic,
yeah,
in between the small gap between leaving and the pandemic, this country was making more money.
Okay, mate.
Right?
What the... Between the moment we left and the pandemic, we were making more money. What the hell does that mean? Steve, thank you so much for that super chat. Hey, your very first message from as a member. Thank you so much, Steve. Great to have you on the stream tonight. Thank you so much for that support. Hope you're well down there in New Zealand, down under.
Yeah, okay. Where are you getting...
Sorry, that was a terrible accent. Hope you're well down under.
Getting your information from about the 4% hit to GDP having nothing to do with Brexit? You heard the governor of the Bank of England yesterday.
And LBC, to be honest.
Pardon?
LBC. I listen to you and I listen to what they say.
Right. Well, you haven't heard me say that.
What they're saying is, right, that the 4%, right, drop is based on Liz Truss.
No, they're not.
Liz Truss, but okay. But the 4%, yeah, but what's that? It's not based on Liz Truss. It was predicted before Liz Truss became Prime Minister. Long before Liz Truss became Prime Minister. This guy is all over the place. Garrett, thanks so much for that super chat. So what does Brexit look like to you? Brexit, the one that is Brexit, blue passports, sovereignty, 50p coins, oven-ready deal, will of the people. You know... You can actually post that, Gareth, on Jeff Taylor's website, Jeff Taylor's channel, or some other Brexiteers channel, and you get like 100 likes. Thanks.
Not saying that.
That's what it's from. That's the period that they're taking their analysts from.
It's over the last 3 years.
Well,
she was only Prime Minister for 10 minutes last year, mate.
So out of them last 3 years, what have we had?
So it's 100. Is it 100 million or 100 billion a year? It must be 100 billion.
No. Tell me what we've actually had. We've had pandemic.
Yeah,
we've had war.
Yes, I know, mate. But there's literally nobody who thinks Brexit's had nothing to do with our decline, because all the other countries have had pandemic and war.
Only Remainers.
No, Andy. Just have a little think about this. We're doing worse than all the other countries that had.
Look, I have to pick him out on this point. Many of these Brexiteers will say, Remainers are saying it's not like everything is to do with Brexit. Look, I don't know anyone who's saying it's all down to Brexit. Like, if you're asking me, the energy crisis, the war in Ukraine, inflation around the world, the pandemic. These are all big problems, and these are having an impact. It's just that in Great Britain, it's having the same impact, but there's an extra problem added on too, and that being Brexit. So while the other economies are starting to recover since the pandemic, and Germany, for example, was much harder hit as a result of the war in Ukraine, because it deals much. It trades a lot more with Ukraine, and it imports, or it's I think it's reduced a lot of it now, but it used to import a lot of gas from Russia. So when the war began, it was severely hit. It's recovering. It's in a better position than Britain is, and Britain imports much less from Ukraine and buys much less gas from Russia. Why is the UK in a worse position? Because of Brexit. And while other economies will continue to recover, Britain will lag because it doesn't have access to the workers it needs, and the lack of investment, or the reduction in investment. Roisin, thanks so much for that super chat. Don't understand why Brexiters thought that no world events would happen post-Brexit. Brexit made Britain less able to cope with world shocks, besides all the other damage it did. Yes, it put the UK in a worse position, because it doesn't have, for example, in European countries during the pandemic, the European Central Bank pumped a lot of money into European economies to help them deal with the pandemic. The UK was doing it on its own, so it was in a worse position. There are shortages of workers for heavy goods vehicle drivers around Europe, but if a respective country needs to bring them in, it's much easier to bring them in from Eastern Europe, for example, if it's to Italy that has the problem, than it is for the UK. The UK could have would be in a similar situation to the rest of Europe, but because of Brexit, it's in a much more difficult position to resolve these problems. Nurse, he needs his meds. He's on the radio. Thanks, Alistair. Thanks, Roisin. He sounds like somebody who just gets all of his information from the Daily Mail. Now, I'm going to end this pretty soon, because this goes on, as I said, for 18 minutes, and we're less than 3 minutes in. But James took another call from a lady some days ago about Brexit, and she made a really interesting point. She talked about how the Daily Mail is easy to access, while the Guardian maybe is a bit more middle class, and it uses language that isn't approachable for everyone. While the Daily Mail is written in a very simple way, there's no paywall or anything like that. For example, if you want to get access to economic data that's in respect to Brexit, the best place to go is the Financial Times. But the Financial Times, many of its articles are behind a paywall, so you need to become you need a subscription, and not everyone wants to do that, obviously. So this if you want objective data, the best place to go is somewhere like the Financial Times or Bloomberg. If you want opinion, and you want opinion that's easy to read and similar to your way of thinking, go to the Daily Mail. And I think this is why the Express, the Daily Mail, the Sun have been instrumental in convincing people that Brexit was a good idea, and still is a good idea. Gareth, once again, thanks so much. Right, who put Brexit 50p in the the shithead? Is it shit? I don't know. It could be any word. You could put in a lot of different words there and end it with head, but they're all applicable. Thanks so much, Gareth. Not Great Britain, Max. Northern Ireland not affected as much. No, what I mean is Great Britain as in England, Scotland and Wales. Northern Ireland is doing much better. No, and the ironic thing about all of this is we knew that Brexit would be bad for peace in Northern Ireland. But when it comes to the protocol, unionists in Northern Ireland should be embracing the protocol, because it gives Northern Ireland access to the UK internal market and the EU single market. No other part of the world has that benefit. Scotland doesn't have it, England doesn't have it, Wales doesn't have it, the Republic of Ireland doesn't have it. So Northern Ireland is in a very unique position. It has the best of both worlds, and unionists should actually be grabbing that with both hands, because taking that away, if, when, I believe, there is a United Ireland would not have access to the internal market and the EU single market. That's just a fact, okay? Whether people like it or not, it's a fact. That's why I really don't understand why the Brexiteers in Northern Ireland, the likes of the DUP, aren't campaigning for the protocol. Yes, the protocol is wonderful because it gives us this brilliant position, this access to two markets, while no other part of the UK has it. And if we had a United Ireland, we wouldn't have it. I don't know, really confusing. Thanks to Horace and Gareth. Anyway, let's move on. But I do recommend watching this, listening to this clip, because I responded with because it was just terrible. Galadriana, thank you so much for that super chat. Brexit doesn't make any difference, but even Ukraine under Russia's invasion would have been better economic growth than the UK. The UK is in a worse position than Russia when it comes to growth. Now, of course, the UK is not under sanctions, is not fighting a war at the moment. Like, we can't blame it all on Brexit, but a significant portion of that has to be laid at its door. And the only way out of this is for the UK to rejoin the EU. There's the European Free Trade Association, but I've said before, Norway is dead set against the UK joining the European Free Trade Association. That's in order to get access to the single market. Norway have said already, no, we don't want the UK joining. And one of the reasons for this is because it's made up of small countries. Countries with a population of about 4 or 5 million people. And Iceland. Iceland is a member as well, and it has a population of less than 1 million, I think. So they wouldn't want a country like, the UK joining, with a population of 60 million, throwing its weight around. It would be top dog there, so they don't want that. So the other route is EU membership. So the UK needs to join the EU and then apply to the single market. Some people are trying to say that no, there's some other way you can access the single market without becoming a member of the EU, like Switzerland, but the EU don't want to go down that road again. It was a nightmare. So and of course, if the UK did go down the Switzerland route, it would have no control over the laws. So it makes more sense to become a member of the EU, where you're a rule maker, not a rule taker, than down the Swiss route. And people who've been promoting the Swiss route don't really understand it. Tonton, great to see you once again. Hope you're well. We have unions do not care about the economy, but about English supremacy, which is theirs. Brexit is an attempt to restore English supremacy, which I've said before. The DUP are like English cosplayers. They have this idea what Englishness is. It's not what Englishness is. Actually, maybe I'm not the best person to say that, because what is Englishness? Yeah, I prefer English people to define what Englishness is, not me. But the DUP are definitely not it. I don't know I can't define what something is, but I certainly know what it isn't. And the DUP are not English. They want to be English. They are like cosplayers of English. They think they are English, but they're not. They're just not. There's nothing about them that, apart from the language, and even the language is somewhat different. There's no comparison. They're apples and oranges. Like once again, it's very difficult to define Englishness, because you have Manchester, you have London, you have Dover, you have Liverpool. Like completely different cultures all over the country. So it's very difficult to define Englishness. But the DUP are trying to emulate it, or something like Englishness maybe 50 or 60 years ago, which is quite pathetic. They claim to be proud of their identity, but they don't really have one, I think. Anyway, let's move on. Thanks so much for that super chat. So it says here, MPs back members' bill to give workers right to request predictable working hours. Giving workers and agency employees the right to request more predictable terms and conditions of work could help the government in its quest to get the over 50s back to work, MPs were told. Conservative MP Scott Benton, who's a bit of a terrible individual, workers' predictable terms and conditions bill cleared its first parliamentary hurdle after receiving an unopposed second reading and support across the House of Commons. The bill makes new provisions in Part 8A of the Employment Rights Act 1996 to introduce new statutory rights for workers to request a predictable working pattern, which, this should be something applied to everyone. If you should have the right. So maybe this isn't such a bad bill after all. I don't know the full details of it. But when I heard about the over 50s, it's like, okay. Business Minister Kevin Hollenreich said the government was very keen to find solutions to get more over 50s back into work. See, the thing is, many people who are over 50 maybe have left because of health reasons. They have retired, or because, the work they do is obsolete. Things have changed a lot since the pandemic. Maybe they were burnt out and they decided. I think the idea that you have to get people over 50 back into work. I think if people are struggling to pay their bills, they're looking for work if they're over 50. It's not a case of we need to convince them. I think many who can work and want to work are looking for it. Those who don't need it, those who are financially stable, they're not going to go into work. He told the Commons it's very important to try and attract more people who have left the workplace over 50s back into the workplace. We know that around 575,000 people since the start of the pandemic have left the workforce. These people are of working age. Stressing that part of the solution was creating a more flexible workplace, Hollenreich gave the government's backing to the bill. A more flexible workplace. You have to be very careful with the language that the Tories use, because they believe in things like zero-hour contracts, and they're not interested in protecting the rights of workers. So predictable terms and conditions maybe is a way of let's make it improve some of the conditions so we get these people into work. It's not so much let's improve working conditions because that's the right thing to do. It's a sort of carrot as opposed to a stick. The stick is probably when it comes to universal credit, forcing people off universal credit into these jobs. So I'd be concerned about people who are vulnerable, people who are on universal credit, people who can't do these jobs being encouraged, quote unquote, to do this work. So you can tax them, Jeremy Hunt. Work till you drop. Then less pension to pay, more money for the chums and donors to cream off. Well said, Larry the cat. If you're over 50 and can't work, you shouldn't have to be forced to. Yes. It should be a case of, do you want to do this job? Like many people who have retired want to work. It's part of their routine. It's very depressing for many people who go into retirement, end up extremely depressed or clinically depressed because they feel that they're no longer useful. They have no proper routine in their life. The thing of, okay, I have every day I have a goal to achieve, an objective to achieve. For many people that's gone, and it's very depressing. They feel thrown on the scrap heap. Magic, thanks so much for that super chat. They should have backed Labour's bill to outlaw. Sorry, let me start again. They should have backed Labour's bill to outlaw 0-hour contracts. They want the over 50s into the workforce because they've killed the labour market. I really don't. I was going to say I don't understand why they didn't back Labour's bill to end 0-hour contracts. Of course they didn't, because they are supportive of things like that, because it helps their donors, the people who prop up the Conservative Party. They want the 0-hour contracts because they want to be able to hire and fire people, on a whim, without any need to go to tribunals or to have to deal with ombudsman or anything like that. What about carrot sticks? But yeah, I am concerned about this, encouraging people over 50 to get back into work. This, of course, is a sticking plaster for the ending of freedom of movement, the problems caused by the ending of freedom of movement. In the care sector, in the NHS, in hospitality, a lot of these workers went away. They returned to their homes during the pandemic and they never came back because freedom of movement ended. And in order to fix that problem, instead of having a better immigration system, no, we want to keep the racists and bigots happy, and we just force people over 50 to get into these jobs. First, we'll try and encourage them. If they don't do it, then we use the stick. Thanks, Majik. We have a super chat. Conservator, would UBI help, Max? UBI, Universal Basic Income. UBI would help in a whole range of ways. Like if somebody's over 50 and they have a UBI, they can decide whether they want to work. See, this is very interesting also because of a UBI. If somebody has a UBI, they're in a much stronger position to demand better working conditions. Because if you're desperate for a job and you'll work for below minimum wage, you're going to accept whatever working conditions are given to you. But if you have a UBI, a universal basic income, let's say £1,000 a month given to you directly every month by the state, to everyone, it's universal for the rest of your life. If you're being offered a job, you're going to demand pretty good working conditions. It will be a problem for many companies, ones who want to treat their staff like crap. They won't be able to operate. So it will change the workforce. It's not just the economic benefit. It would change working conditions for everyone. People will say, well, who's going to clean, who's going to mop floors or stuff like that? Not that there's anything wrong with that. But, people who'll be mopping floors will be getting pretty good, decent money because they'd already have a UBI, and if you want them to do it, you're going to have to pay them well. Instead of what the current state is. Has a European country not implemented one, Max? Just like Brazil? A number of countries have run a number of pilot projects. I think in Catalonia they did one. In Poland, I think they did one. In Estonia, also, I think, and a number of countries. I think in Scotland also there's a plan to have a UBI. But the problem with these projects, these pilot projects, is that they're very limited in the amount of people who receive it, and it's for a limited amount of time, and that's a huge problem because it's not universal, it's not for everyone, and it's not permanent. And that's what a UBI should be. Because if you're told, okay, we're going to give you £1,000, just to think about it for a moment. Imagine you're told two different scenarios. One is, we're going to give you £1,000 a month for the rest of your life, or we're going to give you £1,000 a month for a year. You're going to operate in completely different ways. In the first, if it's a UBI for the rest of your life, you could say, wow, well, maybe I'm going to start a business. I'm going to, buy an ice cream van and go around, give it a go. If it doesn't work out, well, I still have my UBI. But if you're on it for a year, you're not going to try that. So, and if it's for a year, you may say, well, I'm going to put it in the bank and save up, this £12,000 or whatever it is, and put it down for, I don't know, to buy a car, or maybe not enough to buy a house, obviously, but I put it aside or save it or do something with it. But if it's for the rest of your life, you're going to spend it in a completely different way. And that's why a lot of the pilot projects don't present reasonable data. Probably the closest thing to a real UBI is in Canada, where they have, and I think maybe also in Norway, where they have a benefit. It's like a dividend from the oil and gas revenues. So in Canada, there are very remote communities where they don't have a lot, they don't have access to, the amenities that all the rest of us do. And to support those local economies, they receive something like a few $100s a month, or a certain set amount of money per year, which is more like a UBI, but it has been extremely successful. Money in the bank, money out. Money in, deposits, money out, tax, yes. Anyway, moving on to the strikes, Unite says it regards pay talks with Welsh Government as ongoing, and its ambulance strike on Monday is still happening. Now, I think Estonia has a form of UBI and it works. Thank you so much, Verti. Great to see you on the stream. So I knew Estonia, and Estonia is a really advanced society. They have completely embraced technology. They have the best, I think the greatest percentage of the population online in the world, maybe. A really advanced way of thinking in Estonia. Thanks, Verti. I don't know if this story is out of date, because somebody was saying that maybe this has already been resolved. But it says Unite says its ambulance members in Wales will strike on Monday. Sharon Graham, the Unite General Secretary, said that as far as she was concerned, negotiations with the Welsh Government were ongoing. She said it would be wholly premature for Unite to talk about any deals being done in relation to the Welsh ambulance dispute. As far as Unite is concerned, negotiations are continuing. Unite will be available all weekend in the hope that a satisfactory offer can be put together to avert strikes next week. However, we are not in that place now. So at the moment, Unite's ambulance workers will be on strike on Monday. UBI sounds like a sort of janitor. That's why Jordan Peterson is such a tool. Robots create UBI. You could have it. So if this is another thing about another reason for a UBI would be to because it seemed the Welsh Government at least chats to people. England doesn't bother. How easy is it to move to Estonia? I don't know. Well, if it's from the UK, it's a bit of a problem because freedom of movement ended. But if you're within the EU, it's not really a problem. I don't know what requirements there are, though. Anyway, but if automation is going to take over... Cynical Koala. Hey, thanks so much for that super chat. I cannot underestimate how thankful I am for your effort in keeping us sane as we observe the circus of British politics. Thank you so much, Cynical Koala. And it's your first message. That's great. Thank you for the support as well there. I live to give. No, no, it's look, I have a video dropping probably tomorrow. It's an interview with another YouTuber called Not the Alan Marsh Show. Very interesting discussion I had with him. Mainly it was just asking him questions about the Labour Party. But it's if I can do these things is if I can speak with people, if I can promote channels as well. Like, I'm really, really fortunate that the channel is so big. It's one of the biggest political channels out there. It's if I can help out smaller channels, that's what I want to do. It's not, for me, it's not about becoming famous or anything like that. It's about dealing with these things, calling out the sort of things that you see in the media. Like, how many times have I said in videos about how, like, why isn't the journalist doing this? I'm doing it. Why can't the journalist do this? Hold these politicians to account. Don't let them off the hook. When they say some stupid crap, call them out on it. Don't just move on to the next question. That's what needs to be done. It's very easy for me to do it from this side, from in the YouTube sphere, but and I'm not a journalist, but it's so frustrating when you see people like David Davis or Jacob Rees-Mogg or Lord Moylan, for example. These Brexiteers just say some stupid crap, and the journalist goes, okay, and moves on. And then the problem is the public think that that's true, and they're not challenged on that. And it comes to it's the work of YouTubers to call them out on that, and that's not how things should be. Thanks for that support, Cynical Koala. I love the name. Brad, good to see you once again. Thanks so much for that super chat, Brad. The G7 are too busy willy waving on the international stage to focus on their citizens properly. Small-sized developed countries have better well-being. Yeah, and that's probably like if you look at what's happening in Ireland to a certain extent, but definitely countries like Estonia, Lithuania, they're able to. Yeah, they're not things like they don't care about the international politics. They're more concerned about domestic politics and making sure that the well-being of their citizens is front and center. But it's it's a very valid point. The bigger countries tend to care more about what's happening on the world stage than what's happening on their own, to the detriment of their people. Thanks for that. There's a very interesting point you raised there. Smaller countries, it's probably the Denmark, the Netherlands, Sweden. These, when I talk about small, I mean small population. Are we still doing UBI? No, we've moved on from UBI. About the strikes, of course, many of the strikes are affecting people all over the UK, especially when it comes to education and the teachers on strike.
Are some of the students who have been affected. Tom Miles is a sixth form student. Tala Al-Kamil is in her final year studying law at university here in Leeds, and Esme McGowan is in her final year of a languages degree. Tom Miles, let me start with you, because you've had your learning disrupted by COVID and now this. I mean, that must be very frustrating.
I think at times it can be very frustrating. A lot of the time we want to get as much learning in as possible due to the almost year of missed learning that we've had, and I think sometimes we have to balance our want for education with the need to see teachers really, get the pay that they deserve, and a lot of the time we have to put our own needs besides. Well,
that's very altruistic of you, but I mean, why do you feel that teachers do deserve a raise? Set that out for us.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have to realise that the teachers, they are teaching the future generation, and the people that.
This is wonderful. This is wonderful to hear. When I was a student growing up, we probably didn't have the same sort of opinion of teachers, and that's wrong. But it's great to hear, students who understand the value of education. They understand that it's important. It's not just a game. It's not just something to pass the time, but it is extremely important for the future generations
that are going to be leading this country. And if we don't give these teachers the proper pay that they deserve, then that's just not going to happen. And I think the government especially needs to realise that teachers aren't just going to sit down and say, I'm going to be underpaid and I'm going to put forward my work every day and teach these children, because I think people don't understand quite how difficult it is being a teacher and putting themselves in other people's shoes, sort of.
And do your friends feel the same, or are some of them griping about
this? Oh
this?
no, some of them are quite annoyed that they're not getting the the education time that they think, that they assume they deserve. And
right. Well, Talat Al-Kamil, let me come to you now, because university students for several years now have had their education disrupted. Are you mad about it?
Well, I think it's a brilliant point that this has been going on for a long time. Since I started university, the strikes have just been escalating, getting worse to the point that this semester is definitely the most disruptive that I've seen. I think it's hard to feel frustrated, though, when it's really for a very important cause. I'm very aware that the lecturers wouldn't be striking unless there was a very good reason to, and it wouldn't be so disruptive unless it was really, really necessary. So I think it's hard to harbour any negative sentiments towards them for that reason.
Right, Esme McGowan, we've had a lot of agreement here with Tom and Talat. Do you feel the same, that despite the fact that your learning's disrupted, you still want a pay rise for your teachers?
Completely. I think more than anything, the lecturers have been trying for years now to get fair pay, to get better working conditions, to stop casualised labour within the universities, and it's not happening. The vice-chancellors across the country are paid I don't know the exact details, but are paid very healthy.
Well, one of them's
wage
paid
packets.
£700,000 a year. So, I mean, doesn't that argue against a pay rise if some people in this sector are incredibly well paid?
I think it argues against such disparity in pay, where you have consistent strikes from the lecturers and from other university staff and PhD students who are clearly continuing to feel the struggle, and they're not being listened to. The students aren't benefiting, but the people who are being paid such high amounts aren't responding, and it's aggravating. It's very, very annoying. And
well said. And it's good to hear that there are people who, like students, for example, who are on the side of the teachers, because when there are people who are making huge amounts of money, but they're not generally the ones who are on strike. And it's the way, we see the sort of rhetoric when it comes to the rail workers, which the media would say, well, what about the train drivers? They earn £60,000-70,000 a year, but generally they're not the ones who are on strike. Or if they are on strike, it's in solidarity with workers who are cleaning railway stations, who are on minimum wage or on 0-hour contracts.
I have no qualms whatsoever with lecturers on strike, because
even though you didn't get any lectures today.
Yeah, I will suffer. My fellow students will suffer, especially at the moment. It's final year. We've got dissertation.
But you need to do something like this in order to change the system, because look, teachers or nurses or whoever is on strike, it's not like they've decided, oh, I don't like what's happening this year or in the last 6 months, now I'm going to go on strike. Part of it is about pay, but most of it is about the conditions that have existed over the last number of years, and and continually asking government to change, to do something, and being met with a brick wall. Guys, we're about halfway through the stream, so I just want to take a short comedy moment. Hope you enjoyed this. I'm sure you will. And then we'll be back in just a second with some more serious stuff.
Looking for somewhere to invest your legitimately earned billions? Why not choose the United Kingdom? As the slowest growing economy in the Western world, including Russia, we're desperate for your money, and we'll let you do literally anything with it. You'll pay little or no tax, and with our famous bailouts, any money you do lose, we will cover it. Concerned that you'll be unable to buy your way into political power and influence public policy with your private wealth? Fear not. We're rapidly climbing the corruption index, and we've got Qatar in our sights. Anxious you'll get bad news coverage? It's fine. The world-renowned British press only focus on what really matters. We've set up our political system so that there's no true socialist representation. So, whoever's in power, your money is safe from anyone who might misguidedly suggest you use any of it to improve living standards in the United Kingdom. And we'll let you make record-breaking profits, even if a few old people have to die in their cold homes. Looking to launder your cash? We'll let you buy up huge swathes of our capital city, and you can keep those luxury flats empty, so you'll never be bothered by troublesome tenants. we've made sure that the famously apathetic British people won't be angry at you because they're too busy fighting each other or working out how to buy food and keep warm. Worried they'll eventually figure it all out and rise up against you? No need to. We've banned all that. Invest in the United Kingdom because we'll let you do whatever the fuck you want.
Wonderful. Larry and Paul, check out Larry and Paul's channel. Moving on. I like the little reference at the end. Home Office shelves plans to house asylum seekers in Southport Pontins. So, asylum seekers will not be housed in the Pontins Holiday Park in northwest England, according to reports. The facility outside Southport, Merseyside, was reportedly being looked at by the Home Office as an alternative to hotels in which to house asylum seekers for their claims to be assessed. Look, instead of having proper facilities, we keep getting these problems. Okay, we don't want to invest in proper facilities. Let's use hotels. Okay, well, we can't use hotels because hotels, are not secure. They're not able to provide the services that are necessary. Okay, let's try something else. It's just try something. We know it's not going to work, but hopefully it'll be a useful stopgap until something comes along or until we're out of power. The BBC reported that Sefton Council understands the Home Office is no longer considering Pontins site for its plans. We have been informed that the Home Office no longer wishes to pursue plans to house asylum seekers in the Pontins site in Ainsdale. We are awaiting written confirmation of this decision, a council spokesperson told the BBC. The authority is understood to have raised a number of objections, including the logistics of accessing the site and the impact on tourism. Ministers are keen to end the reliance on hotels to house asylum seekers, which the government says is costing £6.8 million a day. The Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, is hunting for larger alternative sites which would be cheaper, including former university accommodation, hotel parks such as Pontins, and surplus military sites like the controversial Napier Barracks in Kent. Of course, the problem with the barracks is that they haven't been used in like 20 years, and they're not designed to hold people in this way. They were designed as a barracks to hold soldiers. See, what a normal government would do is, okay, let's bring in experts, decide what sort of facility is necessary and build the necessary facility. But they don't want to do that because that would require time and effort. And I've said before, the Tories are lazy. But the Home Office first attempt to set up such a centre at RAF Linton on an Ouse in North Lancashire stalled after local opposition, including from Conservative politicians, that the threat of legal challenges. Since then, no other firm plans have emerged. So let's do it in this former RAF base, and people in the local area said no. I guess they would also receive similar problems if it came to building a centre, but you need to do something. Pontins will be perfect if it only takes a week to process. If it only takes a week to process an asylum claim. Thanks, no DLC. The main problem here is that the processing is too long. It takes too long to process the asylum claims. Why does it take too long? Because there aren't the staff and the resources available. Why aren't the staff and the resources available? Because the Tory government don't want to invest in that. You need to hire people. You need to spend money. They don't want to do that. So this is why there are fewer staff available, fewer resources available, and it takes longer. And then there's also another problem, is that people who are claiming asylum want to move on to the next stage of refugee status. They want to work, but they can't. They're not allowed to work. Which, puts them in a position where they're looked on by the right-wing media as parasites. And this filters down, of course, into the public opinion of asylum seekers. I can guarantee you not a majority, but a significant number of people would look at asylum seekers in a negative light. And one of the things they'd probably say is how they are sponging off the state. That's the type of language they use. But they don't have an alternative. They can't work. I think the vast majority of people who claim asylum want to work. They want to rebuild their lives. Last week, details of a £70 million contract to put asylum seekers into accommodation centres was published by the Home Office. In December, the Home Office added the £70 million project to the procurement pipeline. The mechanism, it says, provides a formal look at the anticipated outsourcing activities over the next 24 months. Officials aim to run a mini competition for the contract to design, build or renovate these centres and manage them. The programme is due to run from June. And I really hope that the procurement process is above board. I'm not going to say transparent. It doesn't matter if it's transparent. It's above board, that you don't get some Tory donor winning the contract and then building some sort of haphazard building that needs to be knocked down within 6 months, bulldozed after a few weeks because it doesn't comply to health and safety standards, or that it doesn't have a door or something like that. This is the sort of thing. So some Tory donor sets up a company in 10 minutes and then wins the contract, like we've seen before. Asylum seekers before Brexit were sent back after Brexit. There is no law or agreement to do this, Max. Brexit benefits. Yeah, the Dublin Convention was an agreement to send asylum seekers back to European countries, but because the UK is no longer a member, it doesn't have that benefit. It was controversial. There were a lot of problems with it, but being outside it definitely means you can't use it. And nobody bothered to bring that up with Nigel Farage. Tonton, once again, thanks so much for that super chat. They have no intention to approve the visas. You see, I think it's a political game they're playing. It's about, okay, we want to show the people crossing the channel as a problem, and we are the solution to the problem. And they sell that to the public. So they create a problem by not providing safe routes, and then they provide themselves as the solution to that problem, and you have to vote for them because they're the solution to the problem. I think it's as simple as that. Maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but that's what I read into it. They create the problem by not providing safe routes, so people have to cross the channel. They can't just turn up in Calais. They can't fly into the UK. They have to cross the channel. So the Tories know this. They don't provide a safe route, and then they provide themselves as the solution, and the solution being we have to be tougher, we have to drive them back, we have to use gunships. It's all rhetoric to provide the public with the idea that they are providing a solution. So we create the problem, we create the solution. Vote for us. Thanks for that. And it's costing lives, literally costing lives, because people are dying in the sea in order to keep some racists and bigots happy. Anyway, guys, let's move on. Bank of England must not push interest rates too high, its chief economist says. The Bank of England is alive to the risk of pushing interest rates too high, its chief economist has signalled, adding to expectations that it could be nearing the end of the sustained period of interest rate rises. Speaking a day after the bank raised interest rates for the 10th successive time by 0.5 percentage points to 4%, Hugh Peel said the full impact of the rate increase had not yet been felt in the UK economy. So this is going to affect generally a mortgage, people on tracker mortgages, so where their mortgage rates are changing. It's not believed to impact very much on, for example, personal debt, like credit card debt, things like that, because people are paying massive interest rates on credit card debt, 10% tens of percentages. So it's, an extra little 1% here or there is not going to really have a big impact. But I think it was Martin Lewis was saying this increase would be about an extra £50 a month to somebody who has a mortgage of about £200,000. It's important that we do enough to obtain our objective to return inflation within the target 2%, Peel told the Times Radio on Friday. But of course, it's also important that we guard against the possibility of doing too much. We need to keep that Zen-like balance in our objective. We have to recognise that we've done a lot with monetary policy already. Interest rates have risen by almost 400 base points over a little more than a year. And given the lags in the transmission of monetary policy, there is quite a lot of effects that those rises have still come through. There is a lot of policy in the pipeline. Peel said that the welcome fall in wholesale gas prices after a period when soaring prices fueled higher energy bills and have been seen as a major factor in pushing the UK headline inflation to its current rate of 10.5% will be felt by households and help cool inflation to 3.5% by the end of the year. He said that inflation should be back within the bank's 2% target range by the middle of next year, but warned that care needs to be taken to ensure that companies don't become accustomed to inflation-driving behaviour. If they're able to bring down inflation, this is good, but what is the cost of bringing down inflation? A recession, because there's going to be less growth, or there's going to be a fall in growth, negative growth, a recession over the next 2 years. So this is the cost of bringing down inflation. If there is a recession, then you're going to bring down inflation because people are not spending money. So from bankers to I'll just open this and then I just want to read more of your comments. Anyone have any useful idea to cut the cost of living? I think there are no ways to cut the cost of living. This is the problem. I don't know if it's a rhetorical question that you're asking, but people have already cut back on everything. People are going without food, going without heating their homes. I don't think in many cases there's a way to cut back even more. Boris psychedelic Brexit. Cruella photo op at Fountains. So disabled people left short in universal credit move may get compensation. Bit late for this though, but thousands of people, tens of thousands of disabled people across the UK wrongly deprived of benefits by the Department of Work and Pensions could share in compensation potentially totalling about £150 million after an appeal court ruling. Lawyers for two disabled men who first took the DWP to court 5 years ago, have written to the government asking them to set out how they will compensate them and others who were left hundreds of pounds out of pocket each year after being moved onto universal credit. The Court of Appeal blocked the attempt by the DWP to overturn a High Court ruling made a year ago, which confirmed that the claimants known as TP and AR were unlawfully discriminated against by the DWP, refused to repay their monthly benefit losses in full. Like, the DWP know that they're scumbags and they still appeal these decisions. Like, they know that they messed up, and instead of just compensating people, if somebody made a legitimate error, and just think about it the other way around. So just think about it first. These are people who are disabled. They were docked hundreds of pounds a month over a year. Left hundreds of pounds out of pocket each year. Sorry, hundreds of pounds each year they were left out. They had removed from their benefits. And the response from the DWP is to try and appeal the decision. Can you imagine if it was the other way around and somebody messed up with their with their universal credit claim, they could be sanctioned. They could have their benefits removed for weeks, months. But when the DWP mess up, oh, I'm sorry, yeah, well, we're going to appeal the decision and not pay, and try not to pay it out. Scumbags. The appeal court decision issued last month brings an end to a lengthy legal process in which the DWP was criticised for wasting public funds and court time on defending policies that unlawfully impoverished thousands of vulnerable people. There you have it. So the DWP didn't just try to block this, they wasted public money. They spent money on lawyers to try and protect the DWP when they knew that they were making people who are already poor even poorer. And vulnerable people too. Magic, thanks so much for that super. And Magic, I would love to get you on a stream or something sometime in the future, because you're an expert on these things, on especially the DWP. DWP wastes more money in court than paying people, and I fully believe that. They see it as in, okay, which is going to cost us. Well, it's not which is going to cost us less, but it's about sending a message out. So yeah, it would be cheaper just to pay people than to waste this money on court cases. But they want to send a message. It's a chilling effect. They were probably expecting to win this, and if they won it, then they'd be like, oh great, now we can put more and more people, push more and more people into poverty. But it's disgraceful. And this is public money. You know, people who are working and on benefits are paying money, paying their taxes to be shafted by the DWP eventually. The claimant AR said, TP and I have had to fight for justice for 5 years and go to the court 4 times. It is high time that the DWP gets this right. The policy has caused me and others serious hardship. Now that the DWP has been refused permission to appeal last year's court ruling, we expect them to pay us back the money we have lost and fix what they have been told repeatedly is discriminatory. Before they were transferred onto Universal Credit in 2016 and 2017 respectively, TP and AR received Severe Disability Premium, SDP, and Enhanced Disability Premium, EDP, payments worth £178 a month to help them meet the extra cost of living alone without a carer. Just think about it. There are probably senior civil servants in the DWP who are earning probably £178 an hour, and they're supporting policies that punish people who are trying to earn this to receive this money a month because they have a disability. Both of them moved house, a change of circumstances that meant that they were automatically shifted onto Universal Credit. TP moved on clinical advice after he was diagnosed with a terminal illness, non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and Castleman disease. AR, who had a mental illness, was forced by the bedroom tax to find a cheaper home. Yes, the dreaded bedroom tax that was brought in by the Tories, I think back in 2017. Richard Turner, thanks so much for that super chat. We spend a lot of taxpayers' money on court fees. It's like when Priti Patel was bullying people. Sorry, allegedly bullying. I have to be careful. Allegedly bullying her staff. Her department, the Home Office, compensated somebody out of court. If she was innocent, why didn't she go to court and defend herself? No, they used taxpayer money to buy somebody off. Gazman, thanks so much for that super chat. Trust me, I've tried to get the rent costs for Job Centre, and I was blocked. They hide so much, and it's scary. I imagine there's and I'm sure Magic knows this better than I do. I believe there's like a culture within the Job Centre to treat people like scum. Anyone who's coming in to make a claim, they're dodgy. Treat them as dodgy. We're not there to help. This is what, and I've said this before, the DWP or the Social Welfare Department should be there to help people. People come in, they should be like Citizens Advice Bureau. You come in and they say, these are the things that you're entitled to. They should be helping people. You have a disability, this is what you can claim. Do you need money for clothing? Do you need money for food? This is what's available for you. Like, the Citizen Advice Bureau shouldn't have to exist. The DWP should be doing that job, but it's the opposite. That you go into the DWP office, the work office, job center. Their job is to not provide you with information about what you're entitled to. It's the opposite, is to try and convince you, no, you're not really entitled to anything. What you need to do is get a job. Yes, but I can't work. Well, have you tried doing jobs that you don't need to stand up? Have you tried doing jobs that, you can lie down doing? I can't stand up. No, then maybe you can. Michelangelo, he painted a ceiling on his back, you know that. So maybe there's a job there for you. Yeah, I'm laughing, I'm joking about this, but some of these things are almost as serious. They talk almost like that in a serious way. Sanctions are necessary. I suggest not to swear. Yes, he didn't get sanctioned very much, did he? He got a fine, paid the fine, and he hasn't lost his seat. Isn't that amazing? Former Chancellor in dodgy tax deal hasn't had the whip removed. No. Bit of a storm in a teacup for a few days, and then it's all forgotten about. Back to normal. Thanks, Wee Scott's dog. And he's completely correct. A sanction to somebody on universal credit could be the difference between life and death. And you have the DWP here fighting against returning money that is rightfully the money of these people who are on disability and disability benefit. The pair successfully challenged the reduced benefit payment in the High Court in 2018. But when the DWP offered them compensation for less for the loss of STP and not EDP, meaning they would receive £120 a month rather than the 180, like we're talking about 60 quid a month. And the DWP wanted to fight that. They returned to the courts, with the High Court finding in their favour in 2022. Evidence provided to the courts by the DWP indicated that 50,000 claimants were losing out about £60 a month, with the cost of providing traditional relief to similar affected claimants moved onto universal credit would cost up to £150 million over a 6-year period up to 2024-2025. It's great that these people have succeeded in their case, but it demonstrates that the DWP is run by scumbags. Sorry to say it, but we have to call a spade here.
This winter.
So sticking with not exactly universal credit, but the cost of living, households are cutting energy usage to avoid blackouts.
The UK's grid is under immense pressure.
At the moment, it's incredibly volatile.
A war in Ukraine. A squeeze on energy supplies.
The solution is gas.
The national grid has warned there could be blackouts.
If I can just do a little bit and it helps, that's everything for me.
Now, electricity, where it comes from, how it's distributed, and what happens when there isn't enough is on everyone's mind.
But we now need to double down on net zero.
It's a terrible argument unless you're willing to go back to pre-industrial days.
This is the story of what it takes to get power to UK homes and of what it takes to keep the lights on. In the wild, beautiful Shetland Islands, change is in the air. This is the site of the Viking onshore wind farm. Eventually there'll be 103 turbines here, enough to power all the homes on these islands and then some.
Well, Shetland is statistically the windiest place in the UK. If you can't build wind farms where the best wind resource is in the UK, then there's something wrong. So there's a 260 kilometre cable between Shetland and Caithness in the north of Scotland.
Aaron Priest has lived here all his life, and the shift to wind is a chance to leave the past behind.
Shetland has a very, very large carbon footprint as well. It's the centre of oil and gas production, and our power at the moment comes from fossil fuels. It is the future for Shetland, and it will provide great opportunities for future generations here.
Turbine parts arrive at the port, the shape of Shetland's next chapter and all part of the big business of wind power. The government has ambitious plans to more than quadruple the UK's wind capacity in the coming decade and decarbonise the UK's power generation completely by 2035.
See, if you control the energy supply, then you control the price. So if you go, okay, we're producing the energy, we can control the price. So if we need to provide support for the public, we can do that. But if you're importing gas, or if you're producing gas and it's foreign companies that are producing the gas in your territory, you don't have any control over that. That's why I think we need to go back to state-run energy companies and state-run energy, the ones who are producing the energy at the at the very base level, if it's gas or oil or wind in this case, because then you can control it. We shouldn't be. Which government? said a wee Scots dog. If Scotland becomes independent, then I would hope that the new Scottish government would set up a state energy company. Now the SNP are probably talking about this, but the SNP will they be the party in power in an independent Scotland? It could be a different party, probably the SNP. And you would hope that they would hold on to their manifesto before becoming an independent country could be different after. But you would hope that they would set up a state energy company, and they would be able to provide very low-priced energy to citizens, so people would be able to heat their homes and light their homes at a very low cost. And we would no longer see days of, it'd be history, the idea that people would have to choose between eating and heating. Guys, we're almost at the end of the stream. I just want to finish with one final story that's in the news of this, of course, related to energy. Ofgem ignored 150,000 debt complaints. Sorry, not now. Ofgem ignored 150 debt complaints before British Gas scandal. So remember this week, British Gas came under a lot of pressure because it had outsourced work to subcontractors who were literally breaking into people's homes to replace their meters with prepaid meters. And the prepaid meter, of course, is a way that allows the company to, in a sense, cut people off and get around this legal problem of not being allowed to cut people off, especially if they're vulnerable. Alistair, thanks so much for that super chat. Max, Scottish government was going to set one up. So yes, the Scottish government wanted to set up a state energy company, but they can't because they're not independent because of devolution. So it would be a case of, it's not guaranteed that they would do that, but I would hope that an independent Scottish government would set up a state energy company and be able to control prices much better. Because, this year and last year was an anomaly, but we don't know what the future holds. North Wales got a hydro plant that supplies Norway, I think. Wow. Cut people off and then charge them more for the use at the same time. This is the prepaid meter, yes. So it says here, energy companies received more than 140,000 complaints about their treatment of customers in debt last year alone, Open Democracy can reveal. They included 33,000 complaints about the fitting and disconnecting of prepaid meters. Yet the energy regulator Ofgem was only forced into action this week when an undercover Times investigation found British Gas has sent bailiffs to break into vulnerable people's homes and fit the meters by force. It now asked energy companies to pause the practice. And the companies have stopped. But this is once again a problem of, and we've seen it before when it comes to using child labour. You remember in the past when Nike or other companies were taken to task by, non-government organisations about the use of child labour to produce footballs or footwear. The response from the company is like, "Oh, we didn't know about that because we don't actually make it ourselves. We outsource the work to another company, and then they outsource that work to another company, and we're not responsible for the working conditions of these outsourced companies." Apple as well were doing it as well. Many large companies do it, and here we have the companies who pride themselves on being respectful to their consumers and their customers, were of course doing the same thing, outsourcing the work to, well, what can we call them? Hooligans, breaking into people's homes to replace their meters. Now, the response from the company was, we'd already tried to contact them. And, I've been speaking to people offline who've been saying this, or, on Discord, who've been saying that in many cases, it's in many cases, the company would go to the magistrate's court and drop a block, a few kilos of documents for the magistrate court to sign as, we need these court orders to break into people's homes. The magistrates are overwhelmed, and they don't have the resources to go through each of these requests, and they just sign off on hundreds of requests, per hour. And then the companies are able to break in to people's homes because they have a court order and to replace these meters. And there was a story, I think, in the Times report where, you had some of these people using the toilet of the people, playing with the kids' toys as their colleagues were replacing the meter. Can you, the violation of people's privacy here? I can't imagine a situation you come home and you find, somebody's been using your toilet. Maybe they didn't flush it or whatever. People have been messing about with stuff in your house. The violation there would be with that. I've in the past, I've only been once a victim of a burglary. I was in Dublin at the time, and somebody attempted to break into the house. They eventually, they weren't able to get in. But I was frightened by that, and just the idea that somebody would come into your home while you're out, or even asleep or something like that. Alistair says 300 court orders at a time signed off. Drop off kilos, Max. You're talking about Boris's office. Yes. Sea energy needs to be additionally researched. It's no cost. It's no cost efficient. They said the same thing about solar years ago. Energy bills, magistrate quits over forced fitting meter warrants. Finally, there's some change taking place here, that the companies are being called out, and the magistrate court, that's great to hear. The magistrates are saying, no, we're not going to support this any longer. And Independent Scotland would only have to pay for the supply and not the energy. It's breaking on entry. Simple. Put them in jail and jail their bosses right up the chain who facilitated it. And this is the problem. CEOs don't go to jail. They can receive fines. The company pays the fine and then move on. We could apply this to, for example, pumping raw sewage into the sea. If I pumped raw sewage into someone's river or lake, into a river or lake, I would be arrested. But when a company does it, they receive a fine, and then they do it again because it's cheaper to pay the fine than it is to actually clean up their act. something has to change. So guys, we're almost at the end. I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who came on. Thank you so much for the super chats. Thank you so much for your support. Remember guys, you can also support the channel by just sharing the videos on social media. That's a great way to help the channel, and by smashing the like button. Costs you nothing. For those of you who are patrons or members, you should have access to Discord. Discord, I think Patreon has been messing things about. There's some updates that happened, so do check that you are connected. If you're not, do send me a message on Patreon, and I'll try and sort it out for you. Otherwise, I'll see you on the post-stream chat after the stream tonight. But before we finish, of course, we have our one for the road. I hope you enjoy it. I'm sure you will.
So, Minister, these strikes show no sign of ending. People across the public sector are saying that they just can't cope. What's your response? Well, can I say that I hear the strikers, I feel them, I can practically taste and smell them, and I absolutely understand what they're going through. Have you ever been on strike yourself? God, no. No, when I worked in the private sector, there was never any talk of industrial action. If I wasn't happy with my compensation, I'd simply demand a pay rise from my father, and if that didn't work, I'd get another job with my uncle. And since then, you've been an MP and minister. Yes, and imagine if we went on strike. The country would fall apart. And we have no job security. We can be kicked out of Parliament at any moment with nothing to show for it, except a generous pension. Sure, but if we want to make any more money, we're forced to go into the jungle. Are you talking about Matt Hancock? No, the City of London is an absolute bear pit. So you're telling teachers and nurses just to get another job? Why not? We're recruiting more people into schools and hospitals all the time. But you have huge numbers of vacancies. That's just because we're recruiting so many people. What? You know, it's like when you eat a big meal and you stretch your stomach so you can just about manage pudding. The more we recruit, the bigger the number of vacancies are. It's just basic maths. Can you offer any encouragement to the people striking at the moment? Look, I would love to give the nurses a pay rise. I would love that. In fact, it would make me feel all squishy inside. So why don't you? Because in the end, it's about making choices. Sometimes you have to make the tough, difficult, unpopular choices for 12 or 13 years. But if you give us another 12 or 13 years, eventually we'll be able to make popular choices. Why do you have to make these unpopular choices? Because we have to keep control of inflation. But isn't inflation mostly caused by global factors, including the profits of companies like Shell, who recently recorded their highest returns in over a century? Well, so could you not just tax their profits to pay nurses? Well, no, because that's their money. It's private money, good money. Whereas if we tax it, it turns into public money to pay people with, and that's bad money. The kind of money that causes inflation. Right. Oh, while I've got you, there's talk that Liz Truss may be attempting a comeback. What's your response to that? Well, I don't see why not. Perhaps we were all so sad about the Queen that we were a bit harsh on her. But didn't her mini budget crash the economy? We've all done silly things whilst grieving. When my cat died, I bulldozed my neighbour's garage. Why? Had he run him over? No, I just needed to let off some steam. Thank you, Minister. Next up, as the US tracks a suspected Chinese spy balloon across their skies, we ask, which charmingly anachronistic technology do you think could lead to World War III?
Wonderful. Ruth, thank you so much for that super chat. Roll on Scottish independence. Roll on Scottish independence, indeed. Remember, guys, on Sunday we have the Sunday roast. I hope to see you on the Sunday roast. It won't be live; it's pre-recorded, but we have two wonderful guests. I hope you'll enjoy that. And if I don't see you then, I'll see you next Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel. Have a great weekend. Take care and good night.